It's a story of a persecuted people who finally got a chance, and wow, look what they did.
The numbers are not just extraordinary, they are bizarre. They make no sense at all.
Jews make up 21% of Ivy League students, 22% of Nobel Prize winners,
33% of Oscar-winning film directors, and 40% of the world's undisputed chess champions.
We are tiny, almost infinitesimal minority in the world.
If you look back over the last couple of centuries, some of the great innovative intelligences have been Jews, people who have changed the world and the way the world looks at things.
They broke out of the Jewish tradition. Most of modern Jewish history is extremely reactionary and fixed.
There's no simple answer to why Jews have become so accomplished.
There's a much more ambitious horizon. So let's call it the horizon of eternity.
It's out of necessity that Jews have to think differently in order to survive.
No one will die for our sins. The Christian solution was not a Jewish solution, even though some Jew thought of it. We had to repair our own sins by remaking the world, by making the world a better place, by making the world a more beautiful place to look at in the paintings that we paint and in the books that we write.
Judaism is a religion of protest. I would call Judaism a protest against the world that is, in the name of the world that ought to be.
I think Jewish accomplishment is the other side of the coin of why so many people historically have hated the Jews.
What you're doing in this documentary is daring, it's a little bit dangerous, but it's important because why? It's an absolutely bizarre phenomenon. Why the Jews?
A schoolgirl who came here with the class asked me if the Jews also have something similar like the Christians have the Bible. I thought it quite strange, like knowing her own religion, which is based on the Bible, and that Jesus was a Jew.
I don't think there's any suggestion whatsoever that God made Jews more intelligent than anyone else. There's nothing like that in any of the biblical literature. There's nothing like it in any of the rabbinic literature. But what you will find from the very word go is Judaism becomes the first religion that predicates its survival on education.
It really feels a bit of a fairy tale story. You're going to be meeting royalty at a banquet and being given a medal, and people are going to be watching, and definitely has this very unreal, magical feel to the whole thing that doesn't go along with all the ordinary day-to-day science that you actually do.
Professor Saul Perlmutter, you have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics for the discovery of the accelerating expansion of the universe.
We represent a community of scientists with whom we tackled one of the most enticing ancient questions: what is the fate and extent of the universe? We live in a universe that apparently isn't slowing down at all. It's speeding up, and we have no idea why.
We all wanted just to do interesting science. I would have been thrilled with any answer we had gotten, but this was even better than being thrilled. This was being surprised. And you get a surprise, and that's what you get the Nobel Prize for.
The Nobel Prizes are a really interesting case with regard to the Jews. First place, the Nobel Prizes started in the early 20th century. You may remember there was just a little bit of anti-Semitism around in the early 20th century. And yet, from the very beginning, Jews dominated the prizes, hugely out of proportion to their numbers. And that has just kept going up. The last half of the 20th century, 29% of the Nobel Prizes in the sciences were given to Jews at a time when Jews constituted 0.2% of the world's population. The statistical chances of that happening as a fluke have to be in the hundreds of billions to one. No, what has happened is much simpler than that. Accomplishment at the frontiers of the hard sciences requires a set of personal qualities that we know are disproportionately located in this one group we call Jews. I would like to think that it's useful for Gentiles like me to talk about Jewish accomplishment as it should be talked about, as one of the great gifts of one particular group to the rest of us. And here with the Jews, you have one small group of people persecuted in ways that were probably more severe than for any group except those who were actually held in chattel slavery. Persecuted for centuries. Then at the middle of the 18th century on through the 19th century, this group is finally given a chance to participate in the larger society. And you just have an immediate eruption of accomplishment in the arts and in the sciences that should be celebrated as a triumph of the human spirit. It's a story of a persecuted people who finally get a chance, and wow, look what they did.
Jews feel the weight of history. You feel it every single day. And if you're put down, maybe you try harder to succeed. You overcompensate. I think the Jews have always been drawn to beauty and and knowledge. You have this stereotype of the tortured Jew because you're always questioning what you're doing. And you're always questioning, is this what the composer actually wanted? And what does this marking actually mean? If you question well and in a productive way, it makes you a better musician. The Jews were wandering for 2,000 years, and I think it's very much part of our psyche that we feel different. But if I'm really fully inside the music, I forget everything. I never think about my Jewishness when I'm playing the cello. I forget about my own otherness, and I can just fully inhabit the music that I'm playing.
I was drawn to the law by my Jewish background. The quest for justice, the defense of the underdog, the constant questioning, the adversarial system, the Talmudic discourse where dissents are preserved. There's a wonderful phrase in the Torah: justice, justice shall you chase after. You'll never catch it. It's elusive.
Your Honors, you may not like Klaus von Bülow. You may think he is guilty of something, but I am here to tell you he is innocent.
I have been involved in virtually every major case and controversy of the second half of the 20th century and the first decade and a half of the 21st century. From Patty Hearst to the Pentagon Papers to Leona Helmsley, the impeachment of President Clinton. I was involved as one of the lawyers in Bush versus Gore. I helped Anatoly Sharansky and Soviet dissidents leave the Soviet Union.
Also worked on the Nelson Mandela case.
I became involved in the WikiLeaks case. People point to me and they'll say, Mike Tyson or Assange, and my email is filled with both love and hate mail about my clients, because everybody loves some of my clients and everybody hates others of my clients.
Defending the innocent and the guilty alike is part of the Jewish tradition. The sinners of Saddam had as their lawyer the patriarch Abraham, who argued with God. How dare you, God, the judge of all the world, will not do justice himself? Making these kinds of legal arguments that run through Jewish sources.
Right now, we're just busy preparing for tomorrow.
I've litigated a dozen or so capital cases and 38 homicide cases. I'm very lucky that I've never lost a capital client. I came very close.
You didn't have to kill anybody.
I've been in these situations before.
Two young boys, Ricky and Raymond Tyson, who were clearly innocent and came within just inches of being gassed to death in the Arizona gas chamber. After I saved the Tyson boys from the death penalty, with the help, obviously, of a great legal team, one of the Tyson brothers wrote to me and said, please become a Christian, because we want to spend eternity with you in heaven, and Jews don't go to heaven. I wrote back and saying, no, Jews do go to heaven, and if you're a good person, we'll meet again in heaven. And he said, all right, then I'll become Jewish. And I said, just stick to what you are, be a good person. There's no reason why you have to convert. I grew up as an Orthodox Jew in a yeshiva background where I was always told, if the questions you're asking are so good, then the rabbis who are so much smarter than you would have thought of them first. If the rabbis who were so much smarter than you didn't think of them first, they can't be such good questions. So that was the tradition I was brought up in, but I broke from it. And I said, the rabbis weren't that smart, and I'm not going to constrain myself by what went in the past. I'm going to look in an open-ended way to what is existing now. When I went to Yale Law School, from a yeshiva background, I had a tremendous advantage over my fellow students. What is Talmud? It is the law. What is the Torah? It is the book of laws. We knew how to ask questions. We knew logic. We knew argumentation. I sometimes teach 600, 700 students in a classroom at Harvard. Probably of the 600 or 700, 300 or 400 would be Jewish. Other groups are just as smart and just as quick on the draw. But in terms of the cultural quest for always answering a question with a question, never being willing to find a final answer, is characteristic, I think, of Jews more than any other group.
Every time somebody gives me a characteristic of Jewish culture and says, oh, that explains Jewish accomplishment, you know what I think of? Written Chinese. Now, written Chinese, with its ideographs, is ferociously difficult language to learn to read. Now, if you want to, you can say, oh, one of the reasons that Chinese have elevated visual spatial skills is because they have to learn to read Chinese, and that develops those spatial skills. You know, as far as I'm concerned, the much simpler explanation that only a people who have very high visual spatial skills will ever develop a language that looks like that.
Why is this night different from all other nights?
The same goes with a great many of the aspects of Jewish culture. So some people say Jews are taught to question, and they're taught to probe deeper and to come up with the nuances and all that.
Amen.
Maybe it's just possible that people who have a knack for probing for nuances and probing deeper are going to develop a culture which encourages that kind of thing.
A Jew can never be satisfied. To repair, to improve, that is our job. You want all the time to have a better world, and a better world will be only in the future. The Jews ask themselves a question. Why are we being hated? Why is there anti-Semitism? And there were two answers, not one. One answer was because the world is wrong. The world has classes, has religions, has prejudices. So we have to change the world. They became communists. Change the world. Equal. No classes, no religions, no privileges. We want a new world. The other, they became Zionists. So we cannot change the world. What we can change is ourselves, because we are strangers all over the places. We don't have a land, we don't have a state, we don't have an army. We are living in between the differences that exist elsewhere. So we have to become normal, to re-enter history. Because the claim was the Jews have had more history than geography. This is the most missing thing. We suffer from the lack of peace. intellectually and spiritually, not only physically. I don't want that we shall control the life of other people. It stands against the thing that I stand for. There are two things that are almost the same, love and peace. If you want peace, close a little bit your eyes. If you will open your eyes and look with open eyes, you won't fall in love. You'll discover too many weaknesses, too many questions. If you want to love, if you want to make peace, close a little bit your eyes.
Today, Israel is the second most important source of innovation in the world. On a per capita basis, Israel's off the charts. This year, there'll be $5 billion invested in about 1,000 different venture-backed startups in the country. This number is up over 100% in the last 2 years. Today, there are 350 different multinationals who now have R&D centers in Israel. The concentration of 350 centers in this tiny country, there's nothing like it. The concentration of these startups, there's nothing like it. The concentration of companies that go public in New York, there's nothing like it. There are thousands of serial entrepreneurs roaming the country. These are people who basically start companies for a living. They don't do one or two. They do 3, 4, 5, 6. They start them, they grow them, they sell them off to big companies. There's so much that Israel is now creating that is having unbelievable benefits to the world. Most of the world's completely ignorant of the fact.
Any Android phone with the camera in the middle can work.
It's Israeli companies that are finding ways to detect cervical cancer by cell phone camera in Africa. We have a company that is changing the way that brain surgery is practiced before your neurosurgeon opens you up. It's Israeli flight simulation guys who said, why can't we do this for brain surgeons so they can practice their run inside your brain beforehand? And it's now deployed in major hospitals like UCLA and saving people's lives. This is not about Israeli culture. It's about Jewish culture. Because when you look back at what really makes us tick as great startup people, it's our attitude towards risk. It's the risk acceptance. Now, this is not something necessarily that we just grew up into and said, hey, give us some risk. We like being slaughtered and threatened. This was forced upon us. And you look at these Jews who've just gone out there and done it. It's partly because we've learned to live outside of our comfort zone in constant existential risk. Jews, more than other groups, I think, want to change the big picture. They make great revolutionaries, they make great reformers, they make great dreamers. And part of it has to do, I think, with a prophetic or religious origins in our people. We believe that when God created the world in 6 days, he didn't finish the job. And we have either the chutzpah or through the tradition that it's up to us to complete the job. Your job is to be a partner with God in creation. You have to go fix the world.
There is such a thing as Jewishness, a certain sense of looking at the world, which frees you from many of the conventions, also makes you a target of many of the criticisms. There is a streak of rebellion in the Jewish tradition because it's a tradition which is based on freedom. That is the Exodus from Egypt. And I think the tradition of freedom has been also the tradition to rebel against false authority. Creativity is really a rebellion against convention. The Jewish Museum, I didn't follow the written idea of what the building was, which meant to be just a box connected with some bridge from a Baroque building. I thought, what the program really meant. What was this building about? I thought of the void. I thought of a completely unprecedented structure. I thought of a completely different kind of space and light in the building. The Holocaust Tower. It's an empty space. It's a space of echoes, what you cannot have access to, what is gone forever, and also echoes to your soul. Think what the world would have been if those people were able to pursue their studies, their dreams, their lives. In many ways, I think my project was selected because it was so oddly answering a question that was posed that garnered it the initial kind of, wow, this is something completely different than what we thought. And perhaps that was the character of rebelling against the implied conformity. I never felt that accomplishment has anything to do with individuality, that you're doing it for yourself. You don't belong to yourself. You belong to something far richer. And I think that dimension is what I experienced as being Jewish. Because of the Jewish tradition, there's a much more ambitious horizon. Let's call it the horizon of eternity, of God, of the divine. And I think that's the ultimate ambition that Jews have.
The reason that intelligence has to be at the center of the answer about Jewish achievement is related to the reason that weight is really important to the effectiveness of offensive linemen in the football league. It's not that weight is everything. In fact, if you take all the starting linemen in a professional football league, probably the correlation between weight and how good they are is very small. But unless you weigh 300 pounds, you can't play that position. All sorts of other things besides IQ determine whether somebody is famous and they write a great work or compose a great symphony. But they all have a lot of this thing called general intelligence to begin with, which is the raw material that cannot be done without.
Famous for being aggressive on the chessboard, trying to hunt the king straight from the beginning. Chess generally, it's an individual sport where you can show that you're more clever, you're better. The curve of history was making Jewish people move in that direction, that you have to be smart because that's the only thing is yours. If you want to survive, it is probably your best chance. I was born in Budapest. I started to play chess when I was 5 years old. My parents put the goals very high. And I think this is something which is very special. In Jewish families, they try to put the bars kind of pretty high for the kids. And when you put the bars very high, you also pull them up. It was a great feeling. All over the world, the media was tearing him apart. That will be kind of my legacy, I think, that I'm the first woman who was really competing with the very best male competitors for years. And I gave them a great fight, and I even won almost against all the champions. It's part of our history to fight until the very end, to fight until you get the result in anything.
There's no simple answer to why Jews have become so accomplished over the years. There are some contributing factors, obviously. I think culture's success is very much a function of the education of women. If you deny women the ability to read and deny them the education, it's going to have an impact on their children, male and female alike. The fact that women in Judaism were literate from a very early stage, I think, helps to explain Jewish success. Jews always married in terms of intelligence. You married the rabbi's son, the scholar's daughter, whereas other cultures engaged in a kind of dysgenics. The brightest people didn't marry. They became the priests. So I think these are contributing factors, but don't expect to find the entire answer. It's just elusive.
There have been several points in Jewish history when things have happened that can let an evolutionary psychologist say Jews started to be selected systematically for high IQ. To me, one of the most provocative was around the destruction of the temple in 70 CE. You had a few years earlier, Joshua ben Gamla, famous rabbi, issued an ordinance that all Jewish males had to read. Along with the destruction of the temple, you had the shift of Judaism from a rites-based religion to a book-based religion. And you know what happened after that? To be a good Jew, if you were a male, you had to be able to read the Torah, which is complex text. You had to get up in front of other people and read it. To become a good Jew after that era, you had to be pretty smart. There were something like 4 million Jews at the beginning of the Common Era, and that was down to about 1.5 million a few centuries later. Now, what happened to them? A lot were killed by the Romans, but even after taking that into account, you just had a lot of Jews that boiled away, as it were. They left the faith. And it seems to me really plausible that being a good Jew was just too hard intellectually. And at that same period, you had an alternative, namely Christianity, which was not nearly as demanding. And you had a real winnowing away there of the lower half of the IQ distribution among Jews. There's also an argument for saying that the Jews were already unusually smart as far back as about 600 BCE, and that has to do with the Babylonian exile, where the Bible is very explicit that the Babylonians took the most elite Jews to Babylon, left the rest. It's also quite explicit when they came back, there was not much intermixing. And there's an argument there that the nature of the Jewish population was fundamentally truncated by the Babylonian exile, and the ones you had left were unusually able. You still got another problem, even if you go back to the Babylonian exile, because even earlier than that, you had a religion that had one of the most complex legal systems and legal requirements and ethical requirements of any culture in the world. And you had the Hebrew Bible that was written in those centuries, one of the great literary treasures of the world. And you have to say to yourself, was this just developed by a run-of-the-mill Levantine tribe? It sort of sounds as if they were especially able even then. So at this point, I'm beginning to run out of options, because you do have one small group in the Middle East that seems to be accomplishing really extraordinary things. Why should they have developed these unusual capabilities that far back? And at this point, I've only got one answer. The Jews are God's chosen people.
If we are chosen for what? God has chosen us to suffer. We are being chosen to carry a responsibility, nothing else. Very costly. The Jews remained a small nation because the cost of being small is exceedingly high.
Do Dear God, did you have to send me news like that today of all days? I know, we are the chosen people. But once in a while, can't you choose someone else?
I think the fact that we have survived as a people is quite remarkable when you think of the enmity that's been directed toward us. From the time of the book of Exodus to the book of Esther to the early period of Roman conquest to the Inquisition to the Crusades to the pogroms to the Holocaust. It's remarkable that there are a single Jew left in the world today, and it could have gone the other way.
Jews have been persecuted by pagans, by Christians, by atheists. Communists thought of Jews as the capitalists. Capitalists thought of Jews as the communists. There are blood libels in upstate New York. There are blood libels in Aleppo, Syria. The only thing all those people have in common is they live with Jews. Anti-Semitism is sometimes thought of as jealousy. It's much more profound than that. It's deeper than that. Jews are far from perfect, but it's a sense that because this community sometimes can represent the best of what human beings can be, and I will never live up to that, I have to remove them because they are a constant reminder of my own failures.
The mistake Jews very often make is that they think that other people will always celebrate success.
In 1933, things were getting bad for the Jews in Germany. So a group of Jews got together and they said, what are we going to do to fight off anti-Semitism? And they said, we're going to commission two great German Jewish intellectuals to write a book detailing the great Jewish contributions to Germany. So they spend months and months and they come up with an 1,100-page book detailing all of the great accomplishments of Jews in Germany in science and culture and medicine and all fields of human endeavor. What the Jews then didn't realize, and what too many still do not realize, is that's the reason the anti-Semite hates. It's not despite those accomplishments or in ignorance of those accomplishments, it's because of those accomplishments. Because when you see creativity and you see a productive culture, you have two possible reactions. One is to attempt to emulate. The other is to say, these people are a reminder of my own failures, and therefore I have to destroy them.